The curls are curling.
Thank you so much. I've been using the bounce curl brush a little bit. I don't love it for everything, but I do love how the ends curl nicer with it. But I
Mhm.
feel like I constantly have to zhuzh in order to keep volume going. So you'll see me zhuzhing.
That's okay, I get it.
How have you been?
Um, I've been okay. Obviously, I have no voice, so that's hilarious for me.
Have you been
Um,
sick?
I got sick in trying to think, I got sick like a month ago, and it was all gone, and then what happens with me sometimes when I get, like, sinuses is that, like, it doesn't clear out of my system all the way, and so then I'm stuck with like, it'll take my whole voice away for, like, a month until whatever is stuck in my system clears out.
Oh my gosh, that sounds terrible. Are you able to take anything for it or like teas or anything? I know you love
I've
teas.
been drinking so much tea, literally all the time.
My chamomile tea is like sick of me. It's like, girl, I cannot fix all your problems. Okay. I just launch chamomile tea at all of my issues in the evenings. I've been doing blood orange tea because the taste is so nice lately and
Mhm.
have really enjoyed that one. That's been a nice change.
That's exciting. Oh, wait, I wanted to show you. This is my prototype. Don't judge it by the quality of it. But I'm prototyping T-shirts right now, so it says Certified Man Hater University.
That's hilarious. And I love that it's like right during suffragette era, 1920.
Yeah. No, I was talking about it to someone because I was like, everybody calls me a man hater all the time. And I'm like, I don't, the funny thing is my mom and my dad were like, we know you don't really hate men. I was like, they're like, we know you love men. I was like, thank you. I'm just holding men accountable for the shit that they're doing.
I would love to hear more about what has made you get this sort of reputation of being a man hater because I would love to explore these topics. As you know, recently I go for it.
I've always been a person to call out negative male behavior. And even when I was like, I'm talking, you know, 24, 25. I started, commenting on things, Chris Brown and other situations. And everybody was like, ugh, you just hate men, you such this and that. And I was like, no, I'm just holding these accountable. And I even had like male friends come to me. It was like, yeah, no one wants to date you because you just seem like a man hater. And I'm like, how do you think that me calling out negative behavior in men has makes me a man hater? Like, wouldn't that make me a man lover more than anyone else? Because what I'm doing is like holding them accountable. You only hold people accountable that you love. And I would talk about domestic abuse. Like, this is the crazy part. I wasn't just sitting there like, fuck men, fuck men, fuck men. I was talking about domestic abuse, how men, contribute to that, how men contribute to the patriarchy, how men contribute to keeping women down. I think there was one point in time where my mom got an award and she got an award for, sorry, I have so many bracelets on and I'm about to like have a freak out because it's overwhelming me. She got an award for like a black woman in tech. And I went to get her to her, like to get this award. We were at a conference, like a someone speaking, and he was saying how black men need to do better at uplifting black women into these positions, into these C-suites, into tech, into things that they've been keeping them out of. And then when I'll say that again, oh, you're a man hater. And it was people just like,
They confuse
I'm not
accountability.
going to say that I'm not harsh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I'm not harsh on men. I'm harsh on men because you guys are also harsh on us, you know?
I
Like,
think, yeah.
there's so much people think that like, "Oh, I am more harsh on myself and on women's behavior than I am on men and men's behavior. I just call out men's behavior more because it affects me. It affects the women that I know. I grew up in an abusive household. I've seen abuse. I've had a liar and a cheater as a boyfriend for 8 years of my life. Like, I'm literally just calling out what is out there, what has information, and people don't like that.
I think what's most tough about this is that people label us man haters, but in reality, we are calling out that we are unable to safely love men. I am a lover girl at heart. I would love to
Mhm.
feel safe engaging in romantic relationships around me without feeling like I'm constantly at risk for being swindled, scammed. I feel like my life started out different. I started off a lover girl, and the women who were around me, like my aunts, my cousins, my mothers — I have 2 mothers — my grandmother who helped raise me and my biological mom, and they were constantly warning me of the tactics of men. And as a child,
Mhm.
as a growing girl, I thought maybe these women just haven't experienced good men before. I could see the gentlemen in my family were good fathers, good uncles, but they were not good romantic partners. So when men feel so attacked by women calling out these things, it makes me feel like, do you not understand that how you rise to meet the world looks different when it comes to you treating women in romantic relationships? What is so difficult about that to receive for us to say, hey, you are inadequate partners to us? We are being forced to date our only natural predators, and that's exactly what it feels like. Don't you guys wanna change that? That's the part that
The problem
baffles
is that
me.
they don't, and they don't see it because what you're right is that a lot of people, like, I've had this conversation with, a Hispanic male, and he was like, I have these black friends and they're awesome, so don't say that you won't date black men and blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "How your friend shows up for you is not how your friend shows up for women. How your friend makes you think that they show up for women is not actually how they are showing up for women." And all of these things that men say, so let's be clear, because I don't wanna put blame on other people. What happens is that these men, they know what to say to their friends because they wanna keep their friends, right? And the same with women. Women know what to say to their friends. Women are known for lying and hiding pieces of ourselves so that we can remain friends with other people. Men know what to say to their friends that they don't flash these red flags, you know what I mean? These warning signs. And then you know your friend as your friend. And this happened to me with my relationship with the liar and cheater. They knew him as his friend and they knew his heart as a friend. And so when things would happen, they were like, "No, Jay wouldn't do that. No, he would never." Or, if he did, you guys just need to work through it. Like, it was, and I don't blame anybody in that situation. They just didn't understand that the way he showed up for them was different than the way that he showed up for me. And they didn't have to deal with him romantically. They didn't have to deal with him with the promises to, love me, to protect me, whatever you believe you should have in a relationship. They don't have to have those promises from them. So the way that they show up for them is differently. Your boy just shows up for you to go hang out and shoot the shit and play video games and drink. You know what I mean? When men don't have the emotional intelligence yet to even really be good friends to other men. But other men don't have the emotional intelligence to recognize that. And then the hardest part is that men see the actions of other men in themselves and they internalize that, which is weird for them because they don't like to do that. So then they go, "Oh, well, he's not that bad." And they start to excuse his behavior. I don't know if you caught up with the Taylor Frankie Paul situation. But I've been having, even before all of this came out, I was having a conversation that never made it to podcast because as I podcasted, all the things got canceled. Um, about the conversation how Dad Talk hyped Dakota up,
They
how
did. They
Dad
really
Talk
did.
lied for him, pretended for him, attacked Taylor for him. And that's the issue. The issue is instead of looking at, like, no one looked at Dakota and was like, "You're a fuck. Get your shit together." Although people looked at Taylor like that, Taylor's friends held her accountable. You know what I mean?
Which is common
That
of
didn't
women
happen.
that self-reflect, that say, "Hey, this is what I've done. This is what's happening," as my friend call out my blind spots, and women treat each other that way. Men don't necessarily admit those sorts of things to each other. They don't always see anything wrong with it because they're not on the receiving end of those things. And because in their social circles, it is seen as very normal to do and say things in order to acquire whatever it is they're looking to acquire. Whether it's sex,
Mhm.
whether it's a title, whether it's exclusivity from a girl that they like and they just don't want her to mess with anyone else. They only see things in goals. And granted, not all men are like this, but when you're sitting here watching these type of men acquire so much and swindle so much and get away with so much, I'm sure to a degree it becomes inspiring. And after you see women who fall for it, good women, smart women,
Mhm.
nice women, or women who are now psychologically damaged enough to where they're engaged in this push and pull that is psychologically damning, right? You're going to keep going back a few more times. Other men
Mhm.
see this and think, well, this works. And look at the girl he's got and how he's managed to bamboozle her. Maybe I need to stop being such a nice guy. I am consistently baffled with how men don't set that baseline for each other of like, hey, you're kind of being a piece of shit. As long as you know that. If you're being a knowing piece of shit, hey, that's up to you. But women,
But,
we
like,
will
you
we'll
are.
yes, you are. If you continue, I'll support you. But I'm going to say this once and I'm going to tell you, you're being XYZ. This is how it's going to, these are the outcomes you're going to get. And you need to be prepared
Mhm.
for this onslaught that comes after. But as your friend, I will be here for you. I will love you. And women have established that safety with each other. I actually think
Mhm.
men would greatly benefit from having more close friendships with other women so that they are able to learn about themselves in community and not just in the intimate relationships they're in. Your girlfriend is not your profesora that is supposed to teach you how to cope, how to grow, how to challenge yourself. This is something you should be seeking in your business relationships, in your friendships, and a muscle you should be flexing outside of your romantic relationship in our late 30s, in our 40s, this is not something that a partner should be having to fix. I am absolutely taken aback by how the dating in my 20s versus 30s hasn't changed, even though the men have. Their education levels have changed, their ages have changed, like assets have changed, like the amount of life they've gone through, the trauma that they've gone through has changed. And still, there is such a lack of emotional intelligence that it has me wondering, am I looking in the wrong places? Which I don't think I am because all of the smart, nice, kind, beautiful women that I talk to are experiencing the same things. Or is it that the manosphere has taken a greater hold of older men or men in our age range than we realize? I'm confused.
Yeah. Um, I just saw a TikTok and they said that there was a study done. And what it said is that men are perfect partners for other men and they are no longer perfect partners for women. The qualifications, the education, the skill level, everything that they have to offer is meeting at the level of other men and it's not meeting at the level of other women. And we talk about this and this is by men's own volition, right? That they have an ego issue. And that ego issue leads them to be very destructive, especially when they find a beautiful woman who can take care of herself, who can make for herself, who can create for herself. They feel so threatened by that. They're attracted to it, but what they want to do after it is destroy it. And even like Drake says, "Why do I want an independent woman to feel like she needs me?" Why do you? Why do you want to take a woman and then transform her into what you think that she should be instead of accepting the beautiful woman that you have in front of you? And women are victims of that too. Women do that as well, but we do it at a lower like we're not doing that someone who's our higher. We're not looking at someone who's like our superior and trying to bring them down. We're looking at someone who's our inferior and trying to bring them up. And that's our issue. And the thing is that women are stopping that. They're not looking for a man with potential. They're looking for the man.
Mhm.
I had like a friend once tell me like, yeah, you have to mold and create the man that you want. And I was like, if that is what I have to do to get a man, just keep
It
me
sounds like a
single.
son. It sounds like
I
a
don't want to
son.
I'm not having kids. I have 0 plans on having kids. Everybody's gonna have a so no, if I have medical reasons why I'm not having kids, so fuck off. Second of all, whatever I wanna do with my life, my body is my business. But if I'm not raising a son that came out of my hoo-ha or that I paid money to adopt because adoption costs money, that I paid money to adopt for or whatever I inherited. If I'm not doing that, I'm not raising nobody's son. I'm not raising nobody else's son. Not a grown ass man.
No, and the whole point is, like, I would love to grow alongside a gentleman and help him as he, stumbles across rocks and that he helps me grow in certain scenarios I've never faced before. But to your point, what I have experienced more is these men who see me, they like me, they adore me, they have me on this pedestal. And then throughout the relationship, there is this sort of attempt at breaking me down to
Mhm.
make me feel like I should be codependent, to make me feel like, well, maybe I'm too big for my britches. Maybe I think a little too highly of myself. When in reality, a woman should think highly of herself because we have to survive in a landscape that's consistently trying to come for our rights, our
Mhm.
that is constantly attacking our soft skills, that is constantly treating us unfairly in the boardroom and in other sectors. I need to think highly of myself and empower myself in order to survive the spaces that I will walk into alone, right? And it's like, I also don't know or understand a love that doesn't build up. And I don't want to put that on my femininity, but the women that I know also love that way. It's not envious, it's not jealous, it's always honest, authentic, and sort of rooting for you. Whereas the male kind of love feels like I want you to grow, but don't get too big to where it might threaten your exclusivity to me. Don't get too big to
Mhm.
where you'll attract too many other eyes from other males that I don't want looking at you. Don't represent yourself that way because I don't want my wife to be seen that way. I don't mind me looking at other women that way. I actually enjoy it. But you,
Mhm.
not you. And that's the sort
Yeah.
of possession that men cite as like, well, if I'm this alpha male and I'm this, and it's like, you need to have a sense of security within yourself to also be with a secure woman. And I don't think men grasp that idea either. Like, you have to like yourself. You have to be secure within
Mhm.
yourself. You have to have your own hobbies. You have to have your own virtues and morals that you stand in. And you have to have the comfort of allowing someone else to shine as they so please. And then choosing in truth and allowing that
Mhm.
person to choose in truth if you would like to move alongside each other or not. Or say, hey,
Yes.
maybe we're not forever, but I like you. I think you're cute. Like, let's have a
We can be
casual
right now.
relationship. Let's have a fling. Yes, like let's have right now. And that brings me to my next topic of casual relationships and why it's so difficult for men to just say, "Hey, you're not wifey. I would love to just engage in a casual relationship with you. Let's go out to dinner. Let's have sex." But typically, that requires men to be safe, right? Using condoms, getting tested
Mhm.
frequently, being honest with the other person about your status, things like that, to make sure that both people are safe. And it also requires you respecting women. And I think that's the toughest part. You're laying next to a whole nother entity, a whole nother spirit, a whole nother meat suit. You have to have some sense of respect for the other person to care enough about what happens to them in the next 2, 3 days. Did she get an infection? Does she have to take a Plan B pill? Does she need money for any of that? You have to have a sense of respect or care. Again, you have to be a gentleman to take responsibility for what a casual relationship entails. It's not a full on relationship, but yeah, you do have to get tested, wear condoms, and be honest and respect the other person enough to say, hey, if she laid her head down next to me and now she has to take a Plan B pill, then maybe I'm gonna, send her some dinner, rub her stomach. Like those
Give
simple
her something.
gestures, anything. And it just seems that for men, no, they would rather like create an elaborate lie, deceive perpetually, make the girl feel like she's gonna be a wife and have kids, and instead of just letting it be what it is. And I don't understand the immaturity of that.
Yeah. All right, we are gonna get into that. We're gonna get into more of how we got to this topic in general, but we're gonna roll our little podcast intro real quick and then be right back.
I'm dead.
Quick pause, because if you love dark stories that don't flinch, Olympic War isn't a soft love story. It's violent, it's chosen, and it costs everything. Through war, betrayal, and survival, Moonstone fights for devotion that refuses to die. This is a Black, multicultural dystopian series about power, sacrifice, and what rises from the ashes. Olympic War and Phoenix War. Read them wherever books are sold. So, quick question. Have you ever opened your to do list, looked it dead in the face, and then immediately decided that reorganizing your desktop, deep diving on YouTube, or starting a completely unrelated side quest was actually the better life choice? Yeah, same. And that's exactly why this week on Basically Unbothered, we're talking about something that doesn't yell at you to wake up at 5 a.m. or just be more disciplined like some productivity drill sergeant. We're talking about A Pinch of Productivity, the secret sauce for motivation by Don Turner. Because instead of shaming you into being productive, it gives you the pinch framework: pressure, interest, novelty, challenge, and humor. Translation: you're not lazy, your brain is just bored. This is about learning how to work with your brain instead of fighting it so you can actually finish the things you keep putting off without turning your life into a boot camp montage. So, if your motivation bar has been sitting at low HP for a little too long, go check out A Pinch of Productivity wherever books are sold. And maybe, just maybe, we'll finally finish one task before starting five new ones. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Basically Unbothered. We're joined by JoJo again. If you guys didn't remember her, we had an episode, I think it was in January.
Hmm. Or February,
Yeah.
early February.
Yeah. And it was fantastic. And we immediately knew that we had to do it again because there were things that we wanted to talk about that were growing and building and were uncertain. And so we wanted to give that the time and the space. And I also, you and I talked about giving you kind of the time and the space to be ready to, share your story and everything. And I think that's so important. Again, to tie in like the Taylor Frankie Paul situation, and everybody wants answers for her. And her statement is, I will share my story, but I'm going to share it in the time and the place when I'm ready. I'm not going to do it on some man's timeline. And it's unfortunate that these stories even have to be told. It's unfortunate that these things happen. And it's unfortunate that this is the world that we lived in a world where people are like, protect women. And that's clearly not the case. So we're going to have a real life discussion about it. You and I both kind of share a really terrible situation that we kind of have in common. But I am going to give the floor to you, introduce yourself, let you kind of say whatever. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, she is definitely giving Selena vibes. And I'm not talking like Selena Gomez. I mean, Selena, the queen, Selena. Anything for Selena, Selena.
That is the best
No,
compliment
I'm going to
ever.
go
Stop
home and listen to my Selena vinyl now.
it. Beady beady bum bum. I love it. Best compliment ever.
I mean, it's the truth. It's all honesty.
That's so sweet. So yeah, I've been going through a tough time for sure. I was recently in a relationship, knew this man for 2 years. We officially dated a little over a year. I was very much in love with him. I still kind of am. I'm healing through that part. For whatever reason, your heart catches up to your mind a little later, so I have to give her a little time. I'm okay with that. But we had plans. We had plans to get married, to move in together, to have kids. We were actively planning for our move in and having conversations. I had met his family, he had met mine, I had met his friends, he had met mine, his classmates, all of that stuff. And after a wonderful road trip together that we spent a full week together and just planning life, um, I found out that he was cheating on me, but not with just like one person. This was a situation where I uncovered that I overlapped with 5 plus women. I'm not gonna get into the official number just because it's a lot. 5 plus women that
Mhm.
overlapped and women that also shared deep relationships with him, that also felt that they had a future together, that also thought that they were gonna have kids and, be married. Many of them didn't meet his family and that sort of thing, but they had these exclusive arrangements, and The craziest part is that in connecting with these women, it wasn't a scenario that you would have when you were younger of like, oh, that boy is mine type thing. Like, oh, that's your man, that's mine. No, none of that. These women are all professionals. They're older. They are smart. They're sweet. And they were all very much surprised that this is the man that they had been dealing with. None of us ever suspected any caliber of what was going on. We were all receiving kind of like the same text messages, the same daily updates, just copy pasted things to make sure we were all engaged all throughout. But we each had our own relationships with him. And frankly, it has been a whiplash for me of really understanding who I've been spending my time with and who I've been getting to know, who I've poured my heart out to, because obviously in a relationship, you share all the most vulnerable stuff. Anyway, all of that to say that now I'm kind of stuck in a space where I feel for these women. I feel protective over them because a lot of their hearts are broken as well. Many of us are doubting our reality because now we understand that, like, what this person said, like the I love yous, the I miss yous, like, we don't really know where reality and this facade meet. And so even after any breakup, you kind of want like a closure conversation. You want to understand what just happened. You want to hash it out and put things, in the books. But in this scenario, I can't trust that I'll get the truth because we were dealing with someone who is able to lie effortlessly in order to get what he wants. And more than anything, I wish him healing. I hope he goes to therapy in like the most profound and deep way, because otherwise he's going to keep hurting other women and mainly himself. And I say this because the women that I encountered and me, we're all going to be okay. We're all going to heal. We're going to be able to move past this because we get to keep our heart, our integrity, our zest for life. But any other woman that he encounters, he's going to hurt and traumatize in this way again. So, yeah.
So isn't it, first of all, it's, I completely understand. I had my own situation where I learned about many women. And my situation lasted a lot longer because I was younger. Um, and it was the opposite. We were all fighting against each other every time something new came out. But one of the hardest things, and one of the things that for me kept pulling me back in, is I am a person that needs closure. Like I feel so incomplete without it. And everybody gets so frustrated with me, like, why do you need closure? Why do you need closure? And I was like,
I'm there now. So I'm
yeah.
like you. I'm there now.
And I can tell you that no amount of closure has ever amounted to what I thought it would be. And it usually, for me, not for everybody, but for me, it usually like sucked me back in, because the closure I thought that I was wanting turned around to, but I really love you. And I really wanted to do this for you and everything like that. And there was, never a moment where I got real honesty. And it's interesting because the person that I was with, I always tell him happy birthday on his birthday because I wish him the best. I think that, what we were talking about before we ran the opening was that men could be good friends and good parents and good children, but not good partners, because we teach them how to be those things, but we don't teach them how to be a good partner. We don't care if they're good partners. We just care if they're good in other aspects of life, especially in being successful and making money. So I really believe that he was a good person. He was just a terrible fucking partner, and he had a lot of unhealed things. But I recently found that either he deleted his Instagram or he blocked me from Instagram, which is quite interesting to me. Obviously, probably because I have this podcast and I, talk about my lying, cheating ex. And, it's frustrating because we had a meetup years later, when my mom got diagnosed with cancer and he flew out. Because to me, we have to be separate for my safety, like my emotional safety. But like, you're always someone I'm going to care about. We were together from the time I was 15 to the right before I turned 24. And so like, that's a significant part of like your young life. And when he came and we met up because he came down because I was so distraught about my mom. And I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful. And like, I want to highlight that that is why I'm saying he is a good friend. But when it came to him taking accountability, which is maybe why he doesn't follow me, or, I don't know the whole thing or whatever. I do know that he still has people that maybe not him, but there are still people that know him that stalk my social media, that report back to him, which I just think is fucking crazy because it's been over 8 years since the last situation happened. Um, but even when it came to take accountability, he would say things like, "Well, we weren't really together. We were on a break," or "You never called it us together." And I was like, if you knew that I was being exclusive to you and you were supposed to be exclusive to me, regardless what title we had on it, there was already an exclusivity going on there. So you trying to, it's the Friends episode, we were on a break. You trying to like define what it was so that you can minimize what you did to me. Cause then he said, I didn't cheat. I didn't cheat. So then I looked at him and I was like, you know what? Okay, you didn't cheat, but you sure as hell lied. Like if you want to play this game, you didn't cheat, but you sure as hell lied. And the fact that you think that that's any better, that you lied to someone that you loved, that we were attempting actively to have children, that you were getting ready to propose to me, that you have technically proposed to me many times without a ring. Like if you were going to lie to someone like that, there's just like, there is no understanding. And, for the people who are out there, like I'm going to cry because the situation was so much, but also because I think about like how like messed up his mind must have been. A sane and a sane, mentally healthy person does not go out and date several women and lie to them. That just doesn't happen.
You are so right. One of the things that came up for me that I'm actively experiencing now is that push and pull when someone that you love comes back for you and they
Yeah.
see that you are about to leave and they start to panic. They start to give the kicks of a drowning man. They're begging, they're crying, they're saying all of the things that tug at your heartstrings, all of the memories that you hold dear, they evoke all of the yearning because you're now spending time apart from someone
Mhm.
that loves you. And remember, your head and your heart don't catch up at the same time, right? So
Mhm.
your heart will still yearn even though the person that is most dangerous for you is the one that's hurting you, your heart will still like yearn for them. And people who have done this song and dance before, perpetrators who have done this song and dance before know that. I am
Mhm.
fortunate that I'm able to leave in the first instance of him doing this to me, but a part of that comes at the expense of the women that have come before me that I have found. None of them were able to leave the first time around when, let's say, they had a fight. Maybe someone found a hair in his apartment or a hair tie. When that happens, a person who is down to lie to you, a person who maybe exhibits narcissistic tendencies, they are
Mhm.
able to flip that argument around on you. They're able to victimize themselves.
Mhm.
They're able to say, I've been going through such a hard time. And, the death of my insert family member here, or I'm depressed, or I'm this, and I'm just looking for like, they will make it so that you feel for them. And so that the nurturing side of you that adores this person now and abandons yourself. Now you abandon your own needs to tend to the wounds of this person. And because you love them so much, because you yearn for them so much, it becomes hard to watch the person that you love suffer in front of you, beg for you, cry for you, right? But these women described this performance at length and said, this is how I stayed over the course of this many years. This is how we broke up for this many months, but then I got roped back in, because of a really nice Christmas present, a beautiful letter, a gesture that you would think is authentic, that you would think who would go to all this trouble, right?
Mhm.
Or, they're great with their words and you're like, no, who could make this up? You can't make this up, right? So I definitely
It's
think there's a lesson here for our younger sisters of read. I have been reading a lot of psychology around narcissists, around sociopaths, because there's also a semblance of like, you don't feel enough empathy for me. If you're able to enact all of these things against me, you're not feeling empathy, where I wouldn't even touch you with the petal of a flower. So that tells me that our empathy levels are different. How am I
Mhm.
able to navigate this mind fuck without understanding that? So for my little sisters that feel like they are in a cycle of like, I want to leave, I know this isn't good for me, but I can't get out, my heart can't leave yet, I'm not done. Start to look at objective metrics and facts. Read psychology. Don't, don't let your friends or your family make you feel bad or ashamed. Don't let the world make you feel stupid because you haven't left. There are actual psychological ties at play here that you
Mhm.
don't have control over. You're not stupid. You're not dumb. You are in a cycle. You're in a loop, but that pattern can be broken, and it will if you start to take control of it. But it's going to happen slowly. It's going to happen slowly, and it's going to take some rewiring of your brain. So I want that message out there to any woman in a situation where they feel like they're in love, but they know that they need to go in order to pursue their higher selves.
Yeah. I I wish that I had someone who could have given me that knowledge when I was going through it. There's also, especially when you're younger, there's also an instance of these men doing it to women who they know are extremely vulnerable. Um, and they don't even, and I want to say no, as in when you hear no, you think that they're like actively plotting and planning for this. And sometimes it's not like an active cognitive plot and plan, but what it is there's this unconscious feeling that they have that they can recognize something in you, and it's we all are able to read energy, some to a bigger extent, some to lesser extent. Most of us don't even understand that we can. But what happens is that they are able to see sometimes this lacking in someone, especially when you're young, then they try to fill that lacking. Even when I left my situation, and I didn't leave the first instance. I'm trying to let me go back. I met him um December 31st at a lock-in at a skating rink. Had just turned 15 years old. I had just broke up with my boyfriend that I had no business being with in the first place. And at that point, I was like a breakup to go to another relationship kind of person. Um, and I remember I was super self-conscious. I was really skinny. I've been made fun of it about my whole life. I go to this event and I'm looking at this cute guy with pretty eyes. I was always a sucker for pretty eyes, light skin, pretty eyes.
Sounds
Dated
like trouble.
devils. It's immediately trouble. And I remember I took off my jacket and I had this cute little blue halter top thing. And
Mhm.
I got a reaction that I've never gotten in my life before. And I like stunned the men around me. It's never happened to me before in my life. And it hasn't happened to me ever since, honestly. Um, and I remember that. And I remember, for the first time, this really attractive guy was really into me and my friends weren't around and it was just me.
Mhm.
And I think that that was the first instance whether, he also had his own insecurities. And I think he probably felt the same about me. But I think that was the first instance where that was my first sign of weakness. I was cuddled up with this man the same day that I met him because there was this attention, this affection, this power that I seemed to exude over him or over them that made um that made me feel different than I have felt in a really long time in any relationship that I had had before. And a lot of my relationships before, I knew I was settling because
Mhm.
I wasn't pretty. And I don't wanna say I wasn't pretty as in I'm not attractive. I wanna
Mhm.
say I think that pretty is subjective,
Very.
and what pretty is and what pretty isn't is also based off of sorry,
The male
where you
gaze.
live and where you exist,
Mhm. And the male
right? They
gaze.
like how they
Mhm.
say yeah, it's 100 it's male-based, but it's also male-based, like, what's attractive in Minnesota isn't attractive in New York, right? Um And that's also culturally. What's attractive for a Caucasian isn't attractive for a Latina or isn't attractive for a Black person. Like there's different, what is attractive is different. And so, to me, that was like the first instance of like, oh, I'm,
Desirable. I'm
I'm,
desired.
yeah, I'm desirable. And at 15 years old, after spending your whole life being told by your friends, by the men that you were around, and remember, 15, you're very vulnerable at that time, that you're not pretty. that you're too skinny, that you'd be even by adults, that you'd be prettier if you had put on some more weight, for someone to just look at me. And I think that that is one of the biggest holds that he had on me all the way up until the end, is that he, and at one point in time, loved, for sure, because at one point in time in my situation, there weren't anyone else. He loved me for me when I didn't love me. And that's how I think they end up getting women, specifically women that continue to come back.
Yeah. I think and I that resonates so much with me in terms of like the stories of my youth too and the type of relationships that I had. I think what's
Mhm.
different about this one that's so jarring to me is that I feel like I've had a series of boyfriends in my 20s and 30s that were men I respected. Maybe we weren't compatible for marriage long term, but these were good men who were kind, who were educated, who were trying. I've had decent experiences. I have also had the experiences with the ones that are constantly leeching off of you, whether that's energy or access or money, or the ones that want to lock you down, but they're kind of jealous of you and they don't want you to, be seen by anyone else. I've had those problematic relationships. I genuinely thought that I was up on game enough for this never to have happened to me. I genuinely thought that I was more streetwise, that I was more experienced with men and with dating. I've grown up with guy friends my entire life. I have the same group of guy friends that I had since kindergarten. So I've been very privy to how men speak about women that they date, to how they treat women that they love versus the ones that, they want to have fun with. And I really thought let's just say that I really thought one of the things that happened to me in this relationship that I didn't realize was happening to me was the consistent pushing of boundaries. And I want to call this out for my little sisters too, because I didn't see it. And if I'm 38 and at this big ass age and, having dated all these good men, I didn't see that shit, then that means maybe you're not seeing it too. But there
Mhm.
were many times around different topics that I expressed a boundary. Like, "Hey, I actually don't wanna do XYZ. I would do that in a relationship with my husband, but that's something that, like, is for later on. Like, I need someone to sign some paperwork in order for me to, do XYZ." And I would lay those boundaries down, and in time, he would push those boundaries subtly, but in a way that
Mhm.
made me feel like, "Didn't I say no?"
Like,
And it's
wasn't
like,
I
wasn't
yeah.
I clear? But because the pushing of the boundaries exists in a space of a ton of doting and cooking me breakfast and taking me everywhere and compliments and all of this beautiful stuff, right? Like again, a mirage, like this just painting this beautiful picture of how much you love me, how much you care about me, how special I am to you, and then these grand gestures. So whenever that boundary pushing happens, it's kind of like
Mhm.
confusing, but you also feel more adept to like letting them push the boundary. And it's like, well, I guess they're not doing what I said I wouldn't do. It's just one little step towards. It doesn't feel good to you, but you allow it, you continue it, you bypass it. Maybe you mention it again, but then as you keep going 2 months later, a boundary is pushed again. So I feel like those are the
Mhm.
instances where I really want women to like, hey, perk up. Your gut instinct's going off. Listen to it. Try to put your finger on it. Hell, write it down in your notes app. Put the date that it happened and what happened. That I will also say is another piece of advice I have for my little sisters. If you are in a relationship and one day your gut instinct goes off, one day you see a red flag, one day you're just like, you know what? This made me feel a way, write it down in your notes app. Write down the date, write down where you were, and then forget about it. 2 months, maybe nothing will happen. But now that I'm in the situation that I'm in, I wish I could remember the date of every single one of those times because I can confirm for the most part now that my gut has never been wrong and never deserved to be ignored. It's just that these things were happening so subtly that in the moment I couldn't notice. Like I couldn't prove it in a courtroom beyond reasonable doubt. I could say, "Hey,
Yeah.
this made me feel a way." But someone who's a narcissist, someone who's a good liar, they're going to talk circles around you. And if you love them, you're going to believe them. So write it down. Take your notes and notice when those boundaries are being pushed.
As we talk about, like, things that we wanna pass on to our younger self, and there's so much advice that I still wanna give and we have the time for, but I think one of the best ways is just starting where it happened. I think, there's as hard as it is to share our story, our story is the biggest weapon that we have to help other people. Um, so saying that is, and I don't want to push you and talk about anything that you're not ready to. But when did you start to know that something was wrong, or did you not know at all?
I started to get some red flags that made me think there could be there could be another woman involved. But it was nothing so tangible to where I could prove it. And again, here's the thing that differentiates me at this stage of my life from before. So for example,
Mhm.
there was a point in time where I found a hair in his house. And in this situation, if I was 20 years old, I would have flipped the table, said, "Whose fucking hair is this?" We would have had it out. We would have done the da 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 back and forth. And eventually it would have ended up in tears. We would have both cried. He would have begged. I would have stayed. We would have made love. And we would have moved on to the next day. And then we would have bickered about it in any argument I felt like bring it up. Like, that's why I found a hair last time. Right.
Mhm.
I've been in those situations before. And in my experience, what I realized is that a man you love can gaslight you out of just about anything. So knowing that, and that, mind you, that's not a conversation I had in my own mind. When I
Mhm.
saw it, when I found it, I knew if I bring this up, this will make him move differently and I won't be able to observe him in the way that I need to. And I know that's messed up. And I know people are going to be like, just leave. Why don't you just leave, bitch? You wouldn't leave. Shut up. Like,
You
stop.
no,
If
let
you're
me
if you're in a situation with a man you love, with a woman you love, and you're like, nope, this is it, I'm leaving. You're being unrealistic. You're like, stop giving out advice you yourself wouldn't take.
let
Yes.
me be the example that one day I'll write a book about it. I'm not there yet. But let me be the example, and you can call me stupid, and I call myself stupid for it all the time because a part of me was. But let me be the example. No, bitch, you wouldn't leave. And I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna let you get back to it. Before him, there was a guy that I was dating that I thought that I loved. It was kind of like puppy love. And the instant that I thought that he might be cheating, I walked the fuck away. And then a couple relationships later, I got into this and couldn't leave to save my life, you know?
And that's because there are psychological tactics being enacted on you with this push and pull that already have you used to some sort of boundary pushing, or this person has already practiced lying to you. This person already knows all the ways in which you're a broken bird and all the insecurities you have and how to speak to them. So sometimes people are
Mhm.
dealing with much more experienced pathological liars than what other folks realize, and the people that are on the outside looking in. And granted, my message here is not to quell the people from the outside looking in. If you would leave, please continue to think that how round of applause for you. For the rest of y'all that are actually in it and that understand that you are psychologically tied to someone and you may not understand why, how, or why it's so difficult for you to be somewhere that hurts you because you think leaving is going to hurt you worse, right? So I think for me, there were some small, subtle signs, but it was nothing that I could say, this I'm going to bring up and be like, oh no, I'm cutting this off. It happened the last time. So right before I found out like that all of this was happening, I saw his phone open for 15 seconds. I saw one conversation with one woman where it became clear to me that that woman did not know he had a girlfriend. There was nothing wildly inappropriate in that
Mhm.
message. There was nothing crazy there. That message is what prompted me to go on a search and find a slew of women. That woman wasn't even included in this slew. A slew of women that he was future faking with and you lying to, and women that were psychologically just like attached to him and kept coming back in this way, and who didn't realize who he was as a true person, as a true human being. And some of them did. Some of them got themselves out of the cycle and were like, I hate this man. Like, this man is the worst of the worst. Like, I already know this because I've been in this cycle for 5, 6 years, because that's how long it takes.
Mhm.
And going back to what I was saying, these women are all smart. They're professionals. They're well educated. Some of them are mothers. Like, these are the type of people that you could look at and say, this person can make sound decisions for themselves. I want people to make the tie between that and the psychological ties that occur in someone's brain when they're in love with someone that's constantly pushing their boundaries, that love bombs them and that tells them all of the beautiful things, that lies to them and then repairs in a way that only narcissists know how to do, and how
Mhm.
bonded we become to that. But for me, that was the situation of like, oh, now I'm going to dig. Like, now I'm going to dig into the earth's core because I'm past the point
Mhm.
of like privacy, respect privacy, respect. No, like
No
that was
return.
my load the chopper, let it rain moment. And what I ended up uncovering, I would have never imagined. I thought maybe I would find, a girl that he met organically that was, so beautiful that he couldn't resist something normal. I did not expect to uncover what I uncovered. And I will
Yeah.
never let anyone make me feel guilty about not leaving, the time that I found a hair. Like, fuck that.
No, I think that, first of all, to be clear, you can take my advice on it. You can not take my advice on it. I have not found myself in a healthy relationship. Although I know the signs and what is needed to be in a healthy relationship, I have my own issues. But to be clear, if you are in a relationship, a healthy relationship, if you find a random person's hair, that is minimal evidence, right? There's so many explanations. And when you are in a healthy relationship, your
Mhm,
first response is always to trust.
mhm.
That is your first response. That is where you should go. Where you are going, where you don't trust, is a sign of an unhealthy relationship. So if you're in a relationship and you see a piece of a hair and they say, oh, fuck, I was at work, or, I drove my coworker home, your immediate response is going to be to believe that. And that is why when you find out more information, it ends up being so much more diabolical, because they know that your immediate response is going to be to believe them.
Correct.
And when you do that, then that's the first little lie. That's when they're like, oh, okay, great. We've hooked her. Let's
Mhm.
start like really
That's how that
reeling this
boundary is
in.
pushed. Yeah, that's how that boundary is pushed.
And I think you described it perfectly. It's being pushed slowly. And this is where it becomes like younger girls, but also, women in their 30s, like we are. You could reach a place where you have the knowledge, where, like you said, you recognize game, you put up on game, and still you can be caught off guard because, and I want to be clear. I don't think there are some men who are 100% doing this knowing what they're doing. There are men who do this knowing that they're using psychological trauma. There are other men who don't understand that what they're doing is psychological trauma because, as we talked in the beginning of this episode, they were raised to treat and whatever a woman a certain way. Which is where it's harder because they truly don't understand and or recognize it in themselves. That is not an excuse to them. That does not mean that you shouldn't dog these hoes. Um, that's just the reality of the situation. But you can still find yourself in a relationship even after you've gained all the knowledge, you went through all the tests, you persevered, because you truly are not responsible for another person's actions, nor should you be responsible to detect another person's deception.
I needed to
Like
hear that.
I want to keep that very clear. I beat myself up so much and I had so many signs, and I'm an empath, and my signs were like crazy. My signs were like, I looked at a picture of my friends that I had that I worked with at the time, and they were at a Dodgers game. Because it's when I lived in California. And I looked at this photo and was like, he's there. No indication, literally not a single indication that he was there. And I just looked at the photo and I knew. And I cannot blame myself because that's psycho. Who would look at a photo and be like he was there? I found out later he was in fact at that game. But who would look at a photo and think that, you know what I mean? Like the truth is that we hindsight's 2020, and we're trying to punish ourselves for something that we just couldn't have known. No matter how much you want to say it, me and my brother got into a huge fight about this once, about women crossing the street on the other side when they're on the same side as a man. And he was so upset about it. And I was like, I cross the street when I'm walking on the street and a man is on the same side. I go the other way. Whether they're coming this way or they're going that way, does not matter. And he was like, well, why would you do that? And I was like, because I don't know which one of those men are going to attack me.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is the same way as in a dating sphere, unfortunately. You don't know. And the men are getting clever. The men are getting better at this. As we are, as a society, are learning about psychology, so the fuck are they.
Yeah, it's true.
And
My ex was able to therapy speak in any argument. He was able to de-escalate. He was able to center my feelings. He was able to help me regulate. It was crazy now looking back just how well versed he was in therapy speak and how docile he seemed and how caring he seemed and how he was able to dole that out to each girl when as needed, right? As needed, as she needed, not because he really cared, but because he knew, like, okay, this is what's going to keep her at bay. This is what's going to keep her calm. But yeah, keep
yeah,
going.
no, you're right. Men weaponize therapy. Men weaponize therapy. And I'm saying this so that other people can pay attention because oh my God, there's a Sabrina Carpenter song. Hold on, I'm trying to think of what it's called. Dumb and Poetic. And it's supposedly about Shawn Mendes, which is fucking hilarious to me. But in the song, she talks about how he's so dumb and poetic and he thinks because he's in touch with his feelings and he studies all these things that he's so into himself. And really, he's just using it as a way to fucking manipulate women. And that's the hard part. And this is where we talk about like narcissism. A personality disorder is extremely hard to treat in behavioral therapy, in talk therapy, in psychoanalysis. I don't know. There might be other treatments that may be more beneficial, but we're just talking about the typical form of therapy that most people think of when they hear it. Personality disorders have a really hard time with that because personality disorders don't often recognize that there's something wrong with their personality. It's easier to recognize that there's something wrong with your behavior or your mood. It's different to recognize that there's something with the inherently of you. That being said, narcissists specifically do not do well in therapy. And oftentimes narcissists go to therapy not to get better, but to learn how to better manipulate people. And that's the scariest thought to me in general is the idea that therapy is, learning about what gaslighting is, learning about boundaries, learning about, standards, all those things. Those are things that are supposed to be meant to help us. And they are now being things that are weaponized against us.
Yeah. And I will say, I feel like I don't know how smart most men are in terms of being able to use it against women. In my mind, this may be just from my own guy friends who are sane on most accounts, that it's like, who wants to spend their time like this? You want to spend your time arguing with five bitches like across time, right? Like arguing about a hair, arguing about this. To me, it's crazy that you're spending so much time learning tactics to enact on a potential victim as opposed to just liking yourself and maybe not needing to fuck other people's lives up in order for you to have a decent human experience. Like that to me is the baseline where like I can't find it. Like I can't compute, no Nintendo. What do you mean? Like I don't even want to go to therapy to hash out my own shit. You want me to go there to learn how to fuck with you? Like I can't. It makes me feel like, what twilight zone do I live in? Like what do you guys have time for? What are your goals? Like is your goal really to swindle sex out of someone, so much so that you are willing to spend your time, your resources, your mental health wearing a mask, not even being yourself, because now you have to mirror what each girl wants to see, right? It's like, how many hours a day are you spending like that? Aren't you tired? Don't you want to do anything else? And that's one of the things that I can't relate to either as women. Like I want to frolic, I want to forage, I want to nap, I want to create, I want to giggle.
I want a nap.
Okay. What do you mean we're enacting psychological warfare on someone that didn't bother us yesterday? Like, be fucking for real. I can't.
I think that there is and I wanna get back to the story in a second, but I think that there is, like, an inherent insecurity
Yeah.
inside of them, and, people got real pissed at me last year when I was like, "Men's Mental Health Awareness Month should not share a month with Pride." I stand by that. Y'all don't give a fuck. Now y'all wanna take a month from us? No. No, no. And more importantly, y'all don't really care about your mental health. I'm going to be so fucking for real. Y'all love to say that men's mental health matters. You don't give a shit about your own mental health because if you fucking did, you would be practicing instances of self-love. You wouldn't be going fussing to a girl about how your mental health matters. My mental health fucking matters. That's why when I leave this podcast, I'm gonna go home, sip on a glass of wine, like I said, I'm probably gonna dance to Selena now. Light all the candles in my room. On Monday, I'm gonna do my skincare. I am putting myself first. Men don't know how to actually put themselves first. They know how to be selfish. They know how
Mhm.
to be self-concerned, but they don't know the beauty and the nuance of how putting yourself first actually puts everybody that you love first.
It's something that the patriarchy takes from men early on, and that's one of the things that I feel bad because it's like I speak out against the things men do, but deep down at the core, it's I want the healing and the best for men, and I want them to see how the patriarchy strips them from this. The patriarchy gatekeeps manhood and says, in order for you to be considered a part of the boys' club, these are the things that you have to do in order to be a part of the club. These are the things about yourself you have to abandon to be a part of the club because they're not seen as manly. So if you are a gentleman that does know how to, self-care, that does know the things that you need in order to have your cup full, that engages in those activities of like, you know what? I like going to boxing to work out. I like hanging out with my boys at the bar and talking about this. I need to talk to someone about my problems, but I haven't found the right person yet. Let me talk to my mom. Let me talk to my therapist. Men are dissuaded from taking those natural steps that women are able to take because they feel like they
Mhm.
will not belong to the boys club. And then they turn around and they see some of these alpha males sucked into the manosphere with beautiful cars, with gorgeous women that they're swindling, that they're lying to, that whose lives they're ruining, and they think, "Wow, I wanna acquire some of those things." And to me, the lie that the patriarchy tells these men of you are not manly because you are in tune with your emotions, because you are healthy, because you don't swindle, because you don't lie, I think that in itself is the enemy. I hope men liberate themselves from the patriarchy. There are men that I can't
Mhm.
stand that I wish I could slap, but there are other men that I wish I could save. Like, do you realize that you don't have to give a fuck what they think? Do you realize that nobody can tell you you're
Their
less of
opinion
a
doesn't
man
matter.
actually? Yeah, like, do you realize
Mhm.
that the patriarchy ain't shit without you giving it its power? You could turn around and say,
Yeah.
"I'm just as much of a man today as I was yesterday, whether I paint my nails, whether I go to therapy, whether I don't work 13 jobs, whether I never have a fucking Ferrari, what like whether I never have an 18 woman harem, like I'm still a man. And that's the confidence that I want for men. You do not have to prove anything to the patriarchy just to be. You do not have to be cruel to women and to romantic partners just to be a man. You don't have to lie to acquire a beautiful woman just to be a man. You can do
Yeah.
all of that. You can be all of that and still pursue your own fulfillment, your own joy, your own happiness. You will have to go against the grain, but what does that not make if not a man, you know?
Mhm. Um, okay, to go back a little bit to your story. So, you found a hair, it was whatever, don't feel guilty about it because people are dumb. People told me
I
one
know.
time recently, "Well, you shouldn't send photos," and I was like, I sent it to anyways, people gonna judge, let them judge.
Yes.
So you see this text message exchange and you say, mm, hair on standing up, this isn't writing. You start digging. Um, what do you start finding out?
Well, first I say nothing. I see the text message, I say nothing, I go about as if everything is normal, and I start to then strategize and plot really of what is my next game plan? Am I gonna go for the phone? Am I gonna go for something else? And I ended up
Mhm.
turning to online communities of women who you can check with to say like, hey, does this man belong to anyone? And I went
Oh
that
my gosh, I
route.
love those. They're the pictures and they're like, anybody, before I commit to this man, anybody dating him.
Honestly, I wish we could do that like at a town square monthly every single month and just say like, "Hey, I bring forth this man. Does he belong to anyone before I, you know what I'm saying, like let him take me through there." Like anybody
Mhm.
claim this man. But I made the active choice not to bring it up directly to him, not to say, "Who the fuck is this?" Da, da, da," like because I wanted to, right? I wanted to flip a table over. It took everything inside of me not to. But I didn't want him to
Mhm.
cover anything up. And I didn't want him alerted to the fact that I was alerted because I needed everything to stay as it was. I needed all the information accessible to me. Once I was able to connect with that community of women, the things that I started uncovering there were that he was still active on Bumble, that there were women who had connected with him on Bumble, that their spidey senses went off and they were able to cut ties with him and they shared their stories, as well as other women who have dealt with him in his past, as early as like 2020. Through 2023. And they said that this instance happened to them where they were super in love. They were in a committed relationship. They had maybe had like this toxic cycle of being back and forth, but, you know, according to the
Mhm.
women, they were very much in love. And they ended up uncovering, that he had many girlfriends and exclusive friends with benefits relationships. So I found that group of past women first. And when they told me about these patterns, they were telling me about a man that I didn't recognize. They were telling me about a man that I had never met. They were telling me about a man who I never thought would behave this way with women.
Gabby Gabs Podcast.